Most of the time my phone is.
Jenna, it's 6 o'clock. I have 2 people in the waiting room.
Okay, I'm just trying, okay. Hang on 1 second.
I won't be able to see.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, just go ahead and bring everybody in.
What'd you say? Brittany didn't have a drink.
She said that.
All right, Jim, are you ready to roll?
I'm ready to start.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Please call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Newman.
Here.
Cameron.
Here.
Rautenstrau.
Here.
Mylum.
Here.
Cook.
Here. All right, we have a very busy day planned, so let's roll through the agenda. Council on the minutes.
Sure.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Who's got the minutes?
Council.
Council.
Council on the minutes. The bills. Questions on the bills?
You do have questions on the bills, do you not? Can we answer questions now?
I wish I could see you or hear you.
Do we want to ask the questions now?
Yeah, does anybody have questions on the bills?
My question, Bill, is regarding the emails I sent you earlier.
Okay.
One about the Rotello. Seems to be duplicated. I wasn't sure why it was listed that way. $1,600.
We switched systems in late June, early July, so we were switching over. One of the account numbers we have locked out, so it's only certain people can enter. So when the department had entered that originally, it went to office supplies. I corrected it before it got paid. I'm not dead sure why it was showing through the report the way it was. That does go to the proper professional services line over in the community development and the contingency for the mayor's office. So I did look at it, but that was the only, if that was it originally got entered by the clerk in that office, and we had to go in and change it because they didn't have the ability to post to the proper account. So we gave them the rights for that, and then I made the correction. So it didn't go to office supplies, it went to the proper account.
No. He said it was 16. Yeah. Right, Bill, is that what you said to him? You were just taking from one line to the other? Correct?
Are you asking me, Don?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I corrected it before. It wasn't a movement. It's just the person who was entering that originally, because we started the new system, we didn't realize they didn't have access to the proper account. So they put it in an account they could enter it in, and then we switched it.
Right, but I think his question was he wanted to make sure that we did not pay them twice.
No, no, we pay them monthly, but we did not pay them twice for that. We did have a July and an August, or there were 2 payments in that run. They weren't for the same month.
There you go.
All right, any other questions?
I'll take your answer.
All right, local law.
Is that Newman was taking resolution number 2?
I'll take it.
Okay, Mr. Milo. Resolution 3 sponsored by Mr. Milo.
Who's got resolution number 2?
Mr. Newman.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, resolution 4, the special events.
I'll take that, Madam President.
Mr. Armstrong? All right, resolution 5, Jim Alte for personnel, particular person, and contract negotiations. Okay. Any questions before we go to? All right. Nice to see you. Dave?
Thank you very much. I'm assuming I swung me here.
Yes.
Well, thank you, and I wanted to just make sure, I believe Jim passed out a deck like this to everybody, okay? And then I'm going to ask if I can approach, and I will hand out, if you guys could just pass it out.
Sort it down.
I'm going to be fairly brief because we had this conversation about a year ago, but there's some information that I want to show you, and I'm going to ask you to try and focus on the deck. Hindsight, I wish I would have put it online, you guys could have seen it in a form of PowerPoint. But what we're here to talk tonight about is the potential and why the city should consider doing another assessment update for either the year 2022 or 2023. So the last update was done in 2018, which took us to 100%. We have been in the midst of a very aggressive and continued aggressive residential real estate market, and I'm going to go over some very specific information for the city a little later. But you know, the longer the wait, the more inequity happens. And the big issue, obviously, being faced by you guys, being faced by your counterparts in Amherst, but we also want to do one, is cost. Because unfortunately, there is a cost to doing this. In an environment where you guys are very tight on funds, very tight on those kind of things, and in a project that offers little to no state assistance. But my objective tonight is to lay out why we should do it, fully respect the fact that doing it will be a difficult thing in the very short term, could be something we can put off in 2023, or recommendations that we do in 2022. I'm going to go through pages 2 very quickly because, you know, what's the job of the assessor? I got a lot of different things, but obviously my main job is to provide equity. New York State tax law is very simple. You pay property taxes based on the market value of your home. And when that is out of whack, you have some people who are paying too much and some people who are paying too little. And you want to update that periodically. Now, the state doesn't mandate it to be updated yearly. They create equalization rates. Equalization rates, which I'll talk about a little bit, are not the way to go on this. So, equity on page, if you look at page 3, equity is that, you know, my job, plain and simple, is to take the tax levy pie that you guys set, that the school district set, that the county sets for our share of the city of Tonawanda. And my job is to split the pie. Make sure everybody is paying only their fair share of the pie. I don't control the size of the pie. You guys do, the school board does, or the county lights does. But I want to make sure that everybody pays their fair share. And there's nothing that I do that changes taxes. Okay? That's determined by the various councils. But we want to make sure that that tax levy is fairly distributed. Page 4 gets a little bit into real property tax law 305. Which says all real property and assessment units shall be assessed at a uniform percentage of value. Value is defined as market value. That is the end of the day what we're looking to get. What would a property sell in a arm's length transaction? We selling to Sean, Sean selling to me, that the market value of the property. And that's what we try to do. The state puts together a thing called an equalization. The state looks at the city in total. And what does that mean? Well, we were at 100. We're now at 95, we've now down to 92. So that means a house that's assessed at 92,000 is worth 100. and so on down the line. The problem with equalization rate, it looks at everything being equal. All parts of the city, all property classes. Right now, commercial property classes are hurting, residential are not. And right now, what our objective needs to be is to make sure that we got it fairly distributed. Budgets and taxes, something you guys deal with every day. What we always try to tell people is the misconception is the assessment's gonna raise taxes. Doesn't raise taxes. That levy is determined by the various boards. Our job is to make sure that everybody gets their fair share. So what happens many times, you guys saw it in the last update, is the tax rate actually went down. And my objective is really, I don't look at the taxes, I wanna make sure that I got the right market value right in the property, so everybody knows it. The next thing I would like you to go through is the handout that I just gave you color them. And I want to spend a little bit of time, because these are very specific to the city of Tonawanda. So, we talked earlier about our equalization rate. So, in the perfect world, our equalization rate should be 92%. What you see on this first page here in color, you'll see a bunch of different columns. You'll see neighborhoods, number of sales, and a very important column there called weighted mean ratio. So if everybody was selling where we want it to be, that number would be very close to 92%. The state gives you a 5% window, which would make that range anywhere from 0.874 to 0.96. Think of it this way, when you're below 0.92, that means things are selling for more than our assessed value or market value. And if you look at some of the neighborhoods, it's very evident. Neighborhood 101, which I call kind of mid-south, mid-city south, right? Heading towards the Tonawanda line, Brookside. The weighted mean ratio is 0.8193. The other big neighborhood, mid-city north, neighborhood 102, basically just think of the middle of the city right to the river. The average equalization right there is 0.736. Now, what does all this mean? If you look at the section below it, the goal is to be within 5%, okay? Which means at 92%, we like that number to be between 0.874 and 0.966. We're below that in 6 markets, which is indicative of growing real estate prices and indicative of equity. I expect our utilization rate for 2021 to drop to about 82 to 85%. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the negatives when that happens, particularly the loss and some exemptions. The third line from the bottom really is kind of a good summary to what this all means. So the total number is 0.7804. That's our weighted mean ratio for the entire city. This indicates a home that has an assessed value of 100,000 that should be selling for about 108,000 is selling for 128,000. The market is growing. COD and PRD are just measurements of uniformity, and we are within the guidelines. Page 2 kind of gives you a little more, or a little trigger to that. Gives you a little bit of idea of where we're seeing average sale price growth. Okay, going back to those neighborhoods, to that neighborhood 101. Our mean sale price last year, the period of July 118 through June 30th, 19, was 135,161. This current analysis, which looks at sales from July 1 of 19 to June 30th of 20, the period that we're taking a look at, is 149,000. You will see right through the line, our biggest 3 neighborhoods are all seeing double-digit growth in their average sale price. Now, neighborhood 107, which is kind of gas town, did see a small decrease. And really 108, which is really just the shores, it's really hard to get a number because there was only one sale. But overall, in the city of Tonawanda, the average price in that period for a residential piece of property was $135,780. That is a 10% increase versus last year. Now, that's a testament to a lot of folks sitting in this room. People want to move to the city. They're willing to pay more than value, but the market is growing and our inequity is getting wider. So let's look at some examples of inequity. We go to the page 7 of the handout. So So here's just examples of sales that have taken place in the city over the last year. 204 Highland. The assessed value was 102,000. Equalized out, that's 110,869. It sold in October of 2019 for $196,000. 43.4% higher than our full market value. 475 Niagara Street. AV in 20 was 152, full marketed at 165,217. Sold in July of 2019 for $300,000. 44.9% higher than our full market. It also works the other way. If you look at page 8, 390 Fletcher was a property, so that previous page, those folks aren't paying their fair share. These two properties are properties that are paying more than their fair share. 390 Fletcher, assessed value was 98,000, full market value 106,000, sold in August of 19 for 85,000. Significantly below the full market value. And lastly, 31 Bout, AV was 74, equalized to 80,000, sold in March of 20 at 47,500. One of the problems you face when you don't do updates is these folks can come in and say, hey, I'm over assessed, and we can lower their assessment. But when you're not doing updates, all these people who are selling well in excess of our numbers, I can't touch it. It's illegal. It's called selective assessment, unless you're doing a complete update. So, with that, how can we keep assessments fair? So page 9 is into the details. We want to do a reassessment, and this is nothing new here in the city. Pat Bacon did one in 08, I did one in 2012. Previous assessment did one in 2018, and I'm proposing one for 2022 or 2023. What is it? The systematic review of all the properties. We review every property, we being the contractor. I'm going to give you another handout here that will provide some additional reading, gets into more of the weeds on this stuff. But we want to make sure that we look at all the properties and we adjust values. Now, quite frankly, some of our commercial properties that were probably a little undervalued, some of that stuff right now is probably a lot of vacancies and things that are going to be probably, they're overvalued. Apartments, not the case. Residential, certainly way undervalued. We want to go through every piece of property, evaluate it, and get the appropriate value. You know, why do an assessment project? On page 10. The number one reason is to make sure we have equity. It's not to raise tax dollars, it's not to gain more spending. And I think a lot of our residents are aware of that. There's always going to be some people that believe this, but most of our folks know why we do it. Properties do not increase or decrease at an equal rate, and that's what the state equalization rate indicates. It's not the case. Ease of understanding for taxpayers, your assessed values are market value. You keep STAR and veteran exemptions at maximum levels. When your equalization rate drops, those exemptions that our property owners get, STAR on their school, veteran on their school, town and county, decrease because they got to adjust to the equalization rate. Page 11, you guys have seen this, I'm not going to go through it in great detail, but it shows the examples of levies increasing and how it affects taxes, and the fact that sometimes you could have an assessment reduction, but if the community's levy increases more than the reduction, you're still paying more in taxes. Why do a project? What does it do? It gets equity back into the roll. It allows us to review all the properties. It makes sure that everybody is paying their fair share. Equity is the goal. Page 13, I'm just going to skip over because that's somewhat conflicted. I know we're running a little late here. I want to get into really the timeline and the potential cost of this project. So we're going to skip over 14 also. Let's go right to 15. And 15 really is, you know, who creates market value? Not me, the market. I analyze it, I try to review it. So 16 gets into the details of our proposed plan. So our proposed plan would be to do this project, to roll it out in February of 2022. So with that, how does this go? Well, first off, I'm coming to the council tonight to see if there's something you'd like to do. And we'd like to submit an RFP. Now, my recommendation is that we do the RFP based on the cost to come back, we can make, no harm, no foul if we issue an RFP and don't do it. So I think it'd be important that we should do one. We sent out the RFP in September for October return. I've got a pretty good template on an RFP that we've used. I can certainly review it with Mike and Brittany, but it's a pretty good boilerplate and it's worked in other communities. The estimated cost is going to be about $200,000. And that would include payments to the contractor, additional mailing payments, any additional overtime, and I want to be very upfront on that. Could be a little lower. I don't know how the RFP is going to come, but that's what we'd be looking at. We could delay the project to 2023. That is what they're talking about in Amherst, to allow for the buildup of some funding. Okay? Now, what happens? You're going to get more in equity, but at least you're going to do the project, but based on cost, they're doing it that way so we can have money set aside each year. If we do the project, we want to award the contract by November of 20. They would start all their review up until December of 21, where all the field review is done. On February 27th of 2022, we would issue the notices. We would do informal hearings in March and April of 22. Then the roll would be May 1st, then grievance day, and final roll would be July 1 of 2022. Now, certainly that could be all pushed back a year if we decide to go 23. I will say that New York State Aid may, and I put that in bold and big font and everything, be available. They have had aid in the past. It's normally been in the range of $2 to $250 a parcel, which would mean maybe we get around 18,000. You know, but that is purely questionable, and every year is whether or not the governor is going to include it. 18 and 19, just for time, because I want to answer any questions. You know, obviously public relations is critical. You know, using social media, using the things that we normally do to get the message out. Participating in public forums. Hopefully in a year or two, I can go to a chamber meeting or a school board meeting without fear of infecting people. Hopefully we get there. But it's critical, you know, using all of our tools. We've got a great city website, using things like you maybe setting up a Twitter account and what have you. But that's very important. We go out and meet with the school board, I'll go to the senior center, we do some community outreach. It's important we do that. Press releases. I even go on radio and TV. I've been on Bowery. I've been on some of the real estate shows, and you know, people like to yell and scream at me, but that's all right. It's part of the job. But that's critical. Getting that message out, and this is kind of, I just laid out on page 18 and 19 how to do it. So what's some closing thoughts? No one likes to pay taxes. So unfortunately, it's a necessary evil that we have to do. We want to make sure that we administer it fairly by doing periodic updates. We tell folks don't be fearful of an update. We're not here to raise taxes. We want to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share. Doesn't mean you're going to increase taxes or decrease taxes, and some people will. Some people will see an increase in their assessment and a decrease in their taxes. We want to treat everyone fair. You know, we try to do a perfect job with perfect information. We're lucky here in Western New York to have some good contractors, whether it be GAR, EMPM, or KLW, who will provide competitive rates and do a good job for us. And my goal and my job every day is to make sure I have equity. And I believe by doing this project in 2022 or 2023, we will. So before I open up the questions, my closure will be to let you guys digest it. If you're okay, we'll submit an RFP. Doesn't mean we have to do it, doesn't mean we're going to do it. Let's see what the cost is. You know, I got some pretty good costs, some pretty good responses on my Amherst RFP where it was actually lower than what we paid in 17. So maybe it could be lower. And then I'll come back to you guys and say, hey, here's, you know, here's who I would select. Here's the cost. What do we want to do? So with that, are there any questions? John?
Well, I do have a question. I don't want to discount what goes into the whole process of doing the assessments. I know you've been doing a great job on your side, but is this the only means to do an assessment? And my only question: you get people out there the way the contractors do it, go home to home and do the evaluation. I have seen in other municipalities, other cities, in traveling where they kind of adjust it on a yearly basis. In some cases, my understanding, they do it through almost like a software program. When you speak to the fact that it's driven by cell cost, perhaps there's not as much turnaround as there is in other communities, but is there something that can be driven off of that
And
to
there is.
continue to adjust it?
Unfortunately, it's a good question.
And is it allowable in New York
You
State?
know, unfortunately, once you drop below 100%,
Mhm.
there are many communities in Monroe County who have done big projects and then do annual updates, but they're within that 5%. So each year, their number is between 95 and 105. So they can do what's called trending. If you reach, so say, you know what? We think this neighborhood needs to be adjusted, okay? Or we're gonna next year adjust the commercial property. Unfortunately, once you drop below 100, the state won't allow it. And I'll be quite honest with you, Sean, with the costs associated with this, that has to change. So it's possible down the line that the state, because we have the software where we could do it. I mean, us being here only 2 days a week makes it a little more difficult for us to do it internally. But unfortunately, it's kind of this way or no way unless you're at 100%. And what's happening in a lot of communities is the market is growing so fast that they're losing that 100% number in year that we did here.
Right. It's impossible to maintain.
Yeah, so it would be, but you bring up a good point because software and trending and using various analysis would allow you to do some of this stuff, probably less expensive. State unfortunately doesn't give us that ability yet.
And that
But
is,
they may, because I will tell you, a lot of assessors throughout the state are gonna run into the same thing you guys have here and I have in Amherst, just tough to spend that kind of money in the current budget environment that they're all working.
well, thank you.
Steve, last time we did a reeval, I think we were shocked at, what came back on the commercial
Yes.
side of things. Do you see the same trajectory in sales or the same evaluation that you did at home residential on that side of things?
Here's the thing, at this point, Jenna, we haven't had enough commercial sales to say yes or no. Now, I've seen in other parts of Erie County, the apartment class of trade, that property class is still staying fairly stable. Conversely, office, retail is taking some hits, and a lot of the hits are vacancies. So, would I expect today to see an increase on apartments here? Definitely, because I believe we're way undervalued. But some of the office and retail, because of the vacancies and the ongoing vacancies, there's two commercial property classes that are seeing growth. One is apartments and one is warehousing. And unfortunately, and we have the same problem in Amherst, we're not a big warehousing market. You know, a little company called Amazon, you got enough room for 3.5 million square feet, love to put a warehouse in your community, you know? And there's a demand for warehouse. As the economy changes, as the electronic commerce becomes more of the norm, that's where the business is going, but where's it gonna take it from? It's gonna take it from certainly traditional retail and traditional office. We have some horrendous potential vacancy issues coming up in office throughout all of Western New York, you know? And whether that be people saying, hey, remote working works, or whatever it may be, some of it just be changes in business. But we're gonna look at everything, and I do believe that the last project, the commercial, wasn't put to where it should have been. But I can't tell you right now that commercial would see bigger increases than residential, and from a percentage standpoint, I would probably say it probably would, with the exception of apartments.
Any other questions? So council feedback, do we support the recommendation of our city assessor to send out an RFP and we see what comes back? Everybody in
I think
agreement with
that's a
that?
start.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
pretty.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I might give you one last thing here. I'm gonna try and get up here. Jim Casa would love to see me fall over these courts.
Yeah, be
And
careful.
he would go,
Oops.
Jim Casa was very mad at me because I've invited him to jump on the Yankees bandwagon. But he is very loyal to the man. He is very loyal to his Mets. But I told him we have room on the Yankees train for him. All you gotta do is jump on, Jim. Thanks, thank you guys, have a good evening.
Thank you.
He has the AV, is there a chance we possibly hook that up to give you a little bit of PDF of what we're talking about here?
John, how do we do that?
I'm sorry, what did you ask?
We have an AV equipment, we'd like to kind of maybe, how to be looking into the monitor, would that be where, what's the best way to go?
If you have it electronically, what you could do is join the meeting and share the page. And if it's like a PowerPoint presentation, is that doable? Or if you have it on a flash drive or something, maybe Jim can take it and pop it in there.
I've got it, so I can join the meeting.
So how do we get a copy of what they're sharing?
Well, that, unless we see it on the screen. But
Can you email the
do
documentation?
you have the meeting notification? and everything?
Can I have that?
Can you also email the documents to our city clerk so we can?
He's got it right there, so.
Sean, do you need the meeting number, Sean?
Yeah, do you have it handy?
Yep.
Great, got it.
859-4642-0751.
And Jim, do you remember how to turn on the sharing?
I believe it was under, wasn't it under share screen?
I believe so, yeah. It's just share screen and allow.
And then under shared screen, it says multiple participants can
Yeah.
share simultaneously,
Yes.
or under advanced sharing options.
And let me double check.
Thank you, everybody, for being patient here.
So Jim, it was under the advanced sharing options, and there should be an option to allow all participants. Did you find that?
Who can share? All participants? Who can start sharing when
Yep.
someone else is sharing?
Yep, who can share all participants?
Who can share what?
All, A-L-L.
Oh, okay. And then can I put multiple participants can share simultaneously?
Yes. We'll see how that goes. So did you open that up? I think it might pop up to ask you if you can share. Jim?
MJC is connecting. Okay, sir. Hey, Sean, is MJC, is that,
That's you, right? Yep.
he's just got to unmute and turn on the video.
Oh yeah, you can. He'll leave it on mute, but if you can share the screen, that'll be the best. I just don't see it up on your screen yet. Are you? Is he allowed to share? Did you share yours yet? Did you share yours yet?
There you go. There's Greg. go.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Evanger, representing Rubin Company. Joe Rubin is ill today, so I apologize for not being able to be here in person. I'm here to represent for Rubin Company. We have Michael Conroe from Elevate Architecture, and we have Paul Colucci from Arco. That's kind of who the three of us are, what our roles are. I can't really see what we're doing here, so. What you see in front of you is just, it's a rendering of one of the projects that Joe Rubin Company is looking at doing right now in downtown Buffalo on Kelly Island. You may have heard announced probably a little over a year ago that there's an encore golf going down there, which is going to be a knockoff of Top Golf. That's the original concept drawings on it. We're still in the development stages on that, but we just wanted to kind of give you an idea of something that the Rubin Company has been working on locally in the area. We also have another project that we'll be starting probably the next 3 years, dealing with first quarter. That's kind of some of the things that we do. I'll turn it over to. Sure, Conroe here.
So this is another project, the project that we're helping them. It's a 5-apartment unit complex, Linwood in downtown Buffalo. We've started construction and that should be complete within the next year. That's a very nice project. Another development very similar to the one we're looking at. This is down on the Buffalo River. They acquired a good number of parcels. This is with River as well. Along the river, we're looking at a multi-family project. So Paul Colucci with DeMarco Group, we're a state development company based in Rochester, New York. We got a couple of example projects I want to share with you. This is called Brooks Landing. It was a multi-phase project developed in coordination with the city of Rochester. And actually pretty similar in a lot of aspects to what we're looking at Young Street and Fillmore with Steve. So multi-phase project that included the abandonment of right-of-way south of that along the Genesee River. So it was a project that was permitted through New York State Office of Parks and Recreation. It was a lengthy process of bringing that property over to a private developer. The first phase included 80 room BDP State Rich Hotel. And the second phase was 170 beds for University of Rochester student housing. It also included the boardwalk on the Genesee River, boat docking facilities, biking, walking trails, 90s and historic markers. So this project involved collaboration with a lot of different people in the city, and we've got to be part of it for the construction and this is the Iconic City building in downtown Rochester. It's a 1 million square foot building. It was purchased back in 2012 by a company out of Boston. And we've been involved as the construction manager to repurpose that building, including all new central HVAC infrastructure for the building, delivering multi-faceted different components within the building, including a police substation, retail on the ground floor, market rate, affordable housing, high-tech office. We're about, next day, 60% through re-tenanting that building, and been involved in that for about 8 years. This is a project in Durham, North Carolina that we just broke ground on back in May. It's 242 units of market rate housing, a combination of studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments located on the interloop within Durham. Very, very high-end project of upscale, luxury type apartments, includes amenities such as spa and pools, yoga studio, fitness studio, and we are the developer and contractor on this project. Scheduled to deliver units in December.
Asked if you could speak up a little bit and actually maybe move this microphone closer.
The next couple of projects are my firm, Elevate Architecture. We're uniquely positioned. We're a Buffalo firm, but we also do half of our work out west. We're set up, so our employees are all over the country. We were set up to be remotely working prior to the COVID. This is one of our projects locally. This is on Gate Circle in downtown Buffalo. That's Canterbury Woods at Gate Circle. It was a independent living complex. There was about 53 apartments there, and they're basically high-end condo units for retired folks. The next one is a large project we have in downtown Salt Lake City. It's a $400 million mixed-use development. We're currently in construction on the 2 buildings in the center, which is a boutique hotel and a multifamily product. The other surrounding buildings are condos, multifamily, and a biotech building on the left-hand side. This is another local project on Main Street in Buffalo. This will be complete in about a month or 2. It's a multifamily product with a little bit of mixed use and commercial space on the ground floor. And it's really tied into the medical campus, but a private developer. This is another project in Provo, again in Utah. This is a large project, nearly $100 million project. Again, multifamily, that's what our firm specializes in. Most of our projects have a multifamily core. This one does. It has about 450 apartments, 70 condos, and a couple 100,000 square feet of office space. So that's a little bit about us. We've started to study this project, this area, and one of the features that we absolutely love is the canal, Ellicott Creek. This is just a beautiful shot, sunset shot. Shows the activity on the water. We really want our project to kind of emulate these features. It's just some of the great activity that we're a part of on a weekend, nightly basis ourselves. We love it there. This is an older shot during canal days, but we really want to take a lot of these features and pour it into our project so that it can be really quite successful. We've been tracking some of your master plan progress, and I guess one of the big features that we want to do as a team is make sure that we're implementing all of that advice that you guys have worked so hard on in the last couple of years, decades, to really improve the waterfront. We want to do that on a private end for the properties that we own along the Ellicott Creek. So we're going to start to show you some of the work, some of the ideas that we have to start to integrate that. But just know that what we're doing right now is early blocking, and we need to have a lot of meetings with you folks and really integrate all of that really great work that's already started. So we've just recognized we found some of these master plans and proposals, and just wanted to show you that we're recognizing it, we're paying attention to it. This is one that we had a meeting with the mayor last week, and he said this is the project that we really need to pay attention to, the Scheme C. And we really like its development. It's starting to tie to the water very nicely. It starts to set up that park system. It's a great aspect that can tie into the Young Street property that we're looking at. So we also wanted to look not just locally but nationally. What features can we tie into? What precedents can we take from other projects? So these are some of the projects that we kind of are gleaning some of the information from. One is the San Antonio Walk. It's a really great river walk. There's another project in Milwaukee, and what you can see is the activity down on the water. Got a cleaned up waterfront. This could be a pretty crummy little creek, but it's not. They cleaned up the edge of the waterfront. They put dining on the edge. They put restaurants. They put just public boardwalk space. There's commercial. There's office. There's retail. Everything is right there on the waterfront in a beautiful way. And it's not just on a single level. They've also done it on multi-levels. You can see the terraces and the elevated balconies. It all references the water. It all orients to the water. That's what people want. And we really like it and appreciate it, and that's how we want to design some of our properties. This is again, just some more images of those features. You really see the staircase running up to multiple balconies looking down on the water. It's a really, really great feature. You can start to see some of the early sketches of even some apartments that have the balconies that orients to the water. Everybody's connected. So what we've done is we've started to look at some initial blocking diagrams. We're not showing you renders. We haven't decided what we're doing on the waterfront. We're not showing you a master plan of everything worked out. We don't know yet. We haven't started a conversation with you. So that's what we wanted to do today. Start to show you where we're thinking that we might do some connections to the water, what massing we might do on the buildings. Just get your feedback. See if you like it. See if that's something you like. If not, well, then we'll change the blocking and get going again. So this is, we're talking about two properties. Hopefully everybody understands that. We're looking at the Young Street property, and then Karuba also owns quite a significant amount of property along Fillmore and Delaware. So what we're looking to do is currently the Fillmore and Delaware project, as you see here, we see that as the phase 1. We control that site now, so we want to move forward with that immediately. The work over on Young Street, you can see right now we don't have a building plan for phase 1. What we want to do is clean that up, connect to the park system, clean up the waterfront, start to do the work along the boulevard and the water to continue those connections, get people to the water, get people in the area as quick as we can while we're under construction on the phase 1 building, which is the building that runs along Ellicott Creek and then along Delaware Avenue. So what we're proposing there is a 6-story building, the first story being amenity commercial retail space. So it's engaging the people on the waterfront along Delaware with 5 stories of residential apartments above. So in that building, we're getting approximately 80 units, and we're looking at a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedroom units. And if I remember my math, about 12,000 square feet. Yes, of commercial retail space on the first floor, as well as building a parking structure to support the residential units along Fillmore. We would follow that with a phase 1B, which is residential units on top of the parking structure, to add approximately another 40 units, same basic mix. So with this development on this side of the site, we believe we'll be overparked per your city standards so that it can help support the development on Young Street. Am I doing okay?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just interject.
Sure.
And the other reason we looked at this and we're trying to figure out the best way for everyone to kind of get this thing to fruition. And one of the concerns we see on Fillmore Street is that 30 Fillmore property, which is an eyesore, and quite candidly, it's a safety hazard. Part of our issue is we need parking in Young Street, but we also want to take care of some of that urban blight and the city of blight that's surrounding that, get that safer and kind of move forward on that side first in conjunction with the yacht club there and kind of beautify that side on the inside.
So in this view, you can start to see some of the amenity spaces, both on the ground floor and the rooftop. We have rooftop community space for the residents there. And again, it starts to set up that stepping in the building that we kind of like elsewhere. We haven't shown that with the apartments, but the intention would be to balconies, terraces on all those units. And the Gate Circle property that I showed you is a really great example of that. Every unit there has a terrace, a private terrace in the city, which is just a spectacular feature. We're also looking at potentially indoor-outdoor restaurant space that would be next to Prescott Provision, start to create a district along the canal. Just a nice feature to add to that project. Not ignoring the Young Street, currently we're looking at the same type of project on Young Street as phase 2. So the ground floor again would be commercial, retail, amenity space for the residents above, tied directly into the waterfront, boardwalk and docks, which is the blue area that you see, and then 5 stories of multifamily product above that also has a terrace that's on top of the commercial space. So again, some different levels, Ellicott Creek. Okay, yeah.
So we'd open up the floor for questions at this juncture. Thoughts?
Can you send that presentation to our city clerk?
Yep. Yes. Well, if you're familiar with 600 River Road, right? I mean, this will give the city of Tonawanda that similar option to live in a little bit, beautiful view and take advantage of that. I mean, I think we've, as a region, we've wasted waterfront for too many years, and it's just really starting to come in. And with your master plan and how we would like to be able to tie this in, I think it takes that whole thing to the next level.
There's so much information.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your time frame on this? Obviously,
Well, the first, obviously, we're here to get the ability to move forward on the acquisition of both Young Street property as well as 20 Fillmore. We do need 20 Fillmore to put in the whole plot so that we can do if we're going to look at that from a brownfield remediation, if that's going to be something we decide to put in the program, we'll just do on our own. But we need to have that all done at one time. Same thing with 13. So as far as time, I mean, Paul, you can speak a little bit better to that, but I mean, the brownfield program is a 6-month just to be able to get invited in, and then you have to go through that. So I would give a better idea on time. I mean,
Sure, yeah. Part of what we want to do is represent, we have experience doing these types of developments, and hopefully you glean some of that from our body of work. Working in conjunction with the city of Tonawanda, we would start to immediately dive into the due diligence, learn a lot more about the underlying ground, environmental, geotechnical, working with our architects, start to do the design process, which advances from these massing diagrams to concepts into schematic. Then we can have something more tangible to share with the city from an approval process. But we are ready to move forward. I would anticipate that we'd be looking at 2021 as a design and approval standpoint, and if we could break ground in fall of 21, that is a potential. But the devil's going to be in the details relative to what we find out as we do a little bit more due diligence on the actual the site relative to environmental is probably going to be the biggest component.
So just to give a helpful update, so we're like to have given it with the new resolution that you guys and there is a very good and the contract that states that people does not do anything on the Young Street side that they can't sit there and inspect. And they are included from a current standpoint to the green spaces when they do set of a state that if for some reason
and if I may interject, the one thing we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but to that point there, we're also kind of wondering what's going to be happening in that area, the general area. I mean, we don't know if Walgreens is going to be there or not. That opens up a lot more conversation for us with the parking and other ways to really take that and continue to grow from the water into the city's master plan. So by looking at this in a phased approach, we believe that getting that first one over on Fillmore takes care of some of the potential problems that we have over there with the buildings and things like that, gives us an ability to get into the market, make sure that it's being accepted the way we had hoped it would be. If it is, we have the ability to expand there, all while buying maybe a little bit of time to see what may happen in the direct area surrounding the Young Street property, which might, give us an even larger project down the road.
Any questions? So is the council in agreement, that we are being published? Absolutely. Okay. Right. Jim, did you hear that?
I did not get that, no.
Okay, so, the council is in agreement to begin to publish that notice for the next 3 weeks. All right, thank you, gentlemen, and then Jim will send you the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Take a 4 or 5 minute break before we go out and work.
Yeah. But it makes sense to start down and then move up.
Jim, we're just taking a brief break.
Okay, we got like 3 minutes till 7.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's why I was like writing it down when you said Delaware.
We are now recording.
We in the city of Tonawanda Council to order, please call the roll.
Newman.
Here.
Hammerdiner.
Here.
Raudenstrau.
Here.
Mylum.
Here.
Cook.
Here, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please stand for our prayer. This prayer was given to us by Associate Chaplain Dave Nadell. Lord Jesus, we come before your presence with nothing but gratitude in our hearts. Thank you for the gifts of life, and we thank you for every individual in our midst today. Thank you for bringing us into each other's lives and for granting us the opportunity to work together for the good of this community. We commit ourselves unto you, O Lord, and surrender this meeting into your able hands. We thank you for giving us an opportunity to work in unison, and we pray that we have a successful meeting. Take over our minds, hearts, and intentions before we begin this meeting today. May you grant us the wisdom and the knowledge required to discuss and implement solutions to the important issues pertaining to our community. May everything that we have discussed be in reason, sense, and progress. I pray that these qualities enable us to rise together as a community and as individuals to great heights. Grant us the favor and know how of adding value not only to ourselves, but to society as well. King of Kings, we believe that you placed us in our rightful positions in this community for the greater purpose. Plant in us willing and loving hearts that will spread your gospel through positive deeds and help the less fortunate who are struggling. Thank you for everything you have given me. As we now assemble to start this meeting, dear Lord, we pray that your will be done to us and on to others. May we achieve success in what we will discuss today and give us the knowledge necessary to make this meeting a success. This we pray and trust in Jesus Christ. Amen. You may be seated. All right, so communications from the mayor have been ordered and filed, and communications from city officials and correspondence have also been ordered and filed. Thank you to the residents who are joining us, and here and virtually. At this time, we'll now take comments by the public on the resolutions. Please state your name for the record. If you're joining us virtually, there is an option for you to raise your hand if you would like to make comments on the resolution. Any comments on the resolutions? All right, let's call. Any comments on the resolution? Okay. I am going to suspend normal proceedings here. I think we mostly go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations and personnel of particular persons. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Madam President.
Second by Mrs. Stevermeyer. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the council will actually go into our conference room. So the public want to stay here. So Jim, we're going into executive at 7:04. If you just want to put everybody that's joined us virtually into a room.
Yes, I will go ahead and place them in the waiting room.
And then if you want to meet us in the conference room.
Okay.
If you're already open.
I think it's looks like a scented one.
Hey, gentlemen, I'll let the people in the waiting room back in. Okay, Jen, everyone is in from the waiting room?
Yes.
All right, welcome back. All right, so resolution 1.
Resolution number 1 by the council, seconded by the council.
Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Newman.
Aye.
Cameron.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 2 by Councilmember Newman.
Do you have a second?
I'll take it.
Second by Mr. Mylum. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Newman.
Aye.
Cameron.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 3 by Councilmember Mylum.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it, Madam President.
Second by Mrs. Cameron. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Newman.
Nay.
Cameron.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 4 by Councilmember Rautenstrau.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it, Madam President.
Second by Mrs. Cameron. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Newman.
Aye.
Cameron.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted. At this time, we'll now take comments by the public following the resolution. Please state your name for the record. For those that are joining us virtually, there is a spot for you to raise your hand. Please do so now so the clerk can call upon. If anyone in the gallery. So Jim, we have a resident up at the
name is Susan Gregg. Please repeat that. Visual Performing Arts for the city of Tonawanda. Reminding everyone that this weekend is the garden walk. We have over 30 gardens. We had 31 when we wrapped up. We have 30 gardens this year. Friday night is the Friday Night Lights. Goes from 9 to 11. Saturday is from 11 to 4. The gardens are just fabulous. I want to thank all the council members who supported us with adding our guide. It's really appreciated. And for the ones that entered the garden walk, it's great. We sincerely appreciate it. This is the only way we can raise money in the city, so it helps us with our projects. Sunday is the Porch Fest too, which is another thing that you should all get out and see your constituents. The board is also, a couple years ago, we painted 6 of the signal boxes. And this year we're painting 2 more. We're painting the one on Weaver and Niagara, and we're painting the one over on Broad and Seymour. So we're trying to bring some arts and culture into the city. So once again, come out and visit the garden walk. Stop. My house is in the garden walk. Stop by and say hello and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments by the public?
Jen, I have no comments from the people on the Zoom call.
All right. Last call, any other comments? Mr. Newman.
I just want to welcome aboard Matt Ozinski, who was in today in his badge ceremony at Fire Headquarters. Great young man, son of a police or a fire captain from the city of Buffalo. And hopefully good firefighting runs in the genes. So I want to welcome him aboard, and that's all I have. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Ms. Cameron.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank Joe Karuba and his team for the presentation that they had given to us this evening. I think moving forward, it's going to be a great addition to our waterfront. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. Mr. Rostrom.
I'd also like to extend our thanks to the Karuba Group. It was a great presentation. I look forward to some development in the city, and I think they have some great ideas. I look forward to seeing more of it. I was given a memo, which I'll submit to the council, to the clerk, but I just wanted to touch a couple items on there. It is from Lieutenant Sheehan in response to a couple of the findings in the audit that was talked about last weekend. Lieutenant Sheehan does, in addition to his work as the lieutenant for our police force, he also does very much of the computing, handles our network and the IT for the city of Tonawanda. It's a long memo. I won't bore you with most of the technical aspects of it, but he did want to just make a point that the city of Tonawanda has had in place prior to 2020 a legacy ERP application, KVS, which wasn't domain joined and only connected by remote desktop connections. It's been replaced by a new state-of-the-art ERP system from Edwards that supports role-based access control, which is something that was addressed in the audit. Since taking over IT, many other security measures have been put into place to bring Tonawanda up to current industry best practices, and it's a continual, ongoing effort. A couple of the things were servers replaced with HP ProLiant racks, mount servers, climate control, an Active Directory network that allows as needed access. For example, people in the treasurer's office might have full control, whereas some of the clerks could only have access to folders that they needed. Fine-grained password complexity policies to ensure minimum password complexity, prevent password reuse, network protection through Cisco firewalls, VPN tunnels, a lot of things put in place for protection, for encryption, to protect data in our network. So I basically outlines most of this. I just did want to bring that to the attention of to the public, to the council. And in addition to that, it's been a working process prior to the COVID pandemic. There's a lot of upgrades going on, things that Mr. Sheehan was putting into place. And unfortunately, some of that was peeled back with the cuts that we've been making in an effort to save some money. He understands the need to be conservative with the spending. But at the same time, I just want to mention this, one of those things that we need to be careful that we're not overcutting on. There's the protection of data, the investment into our infrastructure is important. There's a return on investment on that that's more than just monetary. There's intangibles that you can't put a price tag on, and I appreciate the Lieutenant Chief's work in that aspect. That's all I have about that. Can I put this to? Just for the matter of record. I did also want to thank Parks Department. I know with the garden walk coming up, there was concerns about the condition of Clinton Park in my own ward, and it has since been weeded and cleaned up, and it looks great. So I just wanted to say thanks to Andy and the Parks Department for doing a great job. That's really it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Round. Mr. Round.
Yes, I just wanted to address a couple of comments that were made at our last meeting, with one of the council members stating that removing police dispatch from our city and going with countywide dispatch could be a cost-saving measure. I want the first responders to know that this has never been discussed among the county council. The effects of this would not save any money. It would cost money, and it would potentially put people's lives at risk. As long as I'm sitting up here, I will never vote for getting rid of dispatch in the city. It would not save any money, and it would not be anything good for visitors to our city nor our residents. I understand that it was in response to a question that had been asked a couple of weeks ago, and it was not a formal proposal, but I do want people to understand that that is something that has not been discussed among the members of this body, and had it been brought up in another venue, maybe we could have discussed it. However, it was not. Secondly, we didn't have the go around the room discussion tonight, so I just wanted to bring up that I had a meeting with the Park Mobile folks, who are the software company that we've been talking with about pay for parking at the river. It was a very good meeting. There's some pretty interesting aspects to this where we can eliminate our city residents from actually we would have to put their city residents' license plates into the database, and then they would get free parking. However, there's an issue of 35 cents. So Park Mobile charges 35 cents per transaction, and that is not something that we can get around. So for the city, we would either have to pay the 35 cents on behalf of the resident, or we would have to come up with another way to make it free for the residents, or the residents could pay that 35 cents parking. But there's no way around that, because that's the fee that the company charges. And I want to keep this at no additional cost for the residents. If people don't have a smartphone, there's a couple different methods to pay. You can call in, there's an 800 number. And the representative kind of laughed about this, and nobody really uses that. But we can look into getting a parking kiosk. And basically what happens is this kiosk runs the software of the Park Mobile company. So, and they have some partners that they work with that the hardware and software both work together very well. Another big piece of this was the enforcement. How would we enforce this? So I took a picture of my notes. So the police cars have the license plate readers on them, and those license plate readers can be integrated with the software for Park Mobile, so that the enforcement would be not having to hire somebody else. It would simply be driving past the parking lot, and then up would come on their screen who is paid, who is not, and then a ticket would be issued. And that's a free tool that Park Mobile supplies to the municipality for this. So it's not an additional add-on. I asked about doing this just as a pilot, and he said, well, it's not really something that they can do. But there's a 3-year contract, and you can get out of the contract. There's a, I don't want to say loophole, but there's an exit clause for that. And we can also manage different payments. So, for example, if we wanted to do something like, one rate of parking during the daylight hours and then another rate of parking on the weekend, that could easily be managed within the software. So it was a very good meeting, and I think we can really raise some revenue by doing this. And I look forward to moving on with this at the behest of the council and the mayor. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Mayor?
Superintendent still a lot of other that I guess, but I really want to thank the county heads and a few very dedicated residents for both the Garden Walk and for Forest Fest. Stop on by my house. It's one of the Friday night light Saturday gardens and the walks. So I'll stop out. I will have water this year. And just like to remind everybody at both events to please socially distance. It shouldn't be a problem to Garden Walk, Forest Fest. Some of those musical artists can really attract crowds, so please maintain proper social distancing and have a great time. These are 2 events that are happening in our city that are happening in other communities. So enjoy what we have and stay safe. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to remind residents to complete your census if you haven't. Prior to the meeting, I met with our city treasurer and I asked him to gather some data for our next meeting. Talk about the ramifications if you don't complete your census. So he's going to work on that, and I'm going to put him on the spot on that. But just a reminder to complete your census. Every person counts. So as I said before, we do have a busy weekend planned in the city here. The Garden Walk, as well as Porch Fest. We know there's about 30 acts that'll be performed. For Porch Fest at 25 different venues, as the mayor has said, please socially distance and wear your mask. I want to give a shout out to Skip Johnson, who last week did a virtual Warriors Walk Wednesday, which was well received. We had watchers from Florida and all over. So I spent a lot of time preparing that walk. So I really appreciate that and all he did. And we will be back on August 26th. Last October, Tonawanda won the TNT football game, and one of the friendly bets that I had with Alderman Austin Tyler was he had to help organize a cleanup in the city here. So I want to thank Alderman Tyler for coming out very early Sunday morning and helping to clean up Main Street. And a shout out to Councilmember Sean Rautenstrau and Councilwoman Dawn Cameron, who also joined us. We had mulch donated from the city business, as well as some business owners on Main Street who were helping us clean that up. So I want to thank everybody, all the volunteers who joined us. It looks really nice down there. So I also want to thank Dave Moran, our city assessor, for bringing us some more good news today and for his presentation. So we look forward to more to come on that. For those who didn't have an opportunity to take a look at the presentation by Greg Eminger and the group, I know that the document will be sent to our city clerk. I was thoroughly impressed by it. I think this is going to be a great addition to our community. So I look forward to seeing that project come to fruition. Also want to add his memo from Councilmember Rounstrau. Bill, I want to make sure that you get a copy of this as well to send to Drescher and Malecki to add to the audit as a response from the city. I think it would be very important to have these comments included in the audit as well. So I'll make sure you get a copy of this as well. I apologize to the council that we didn't have a chance to go around the room, just get a lot going on in a short time. So I'm very excited, and I want to thank Councilmember Dave Milo for his work with Parkmobile. And as I said to the mayor tonight, I wanted to devote some time in our next meeting to talk about Parkmobile and next steps. So I believe there was a handout at one point.
Can get documentation sent over.
Yeah, perfect. So if we can get the documents over, have a chance to review it, and then we can talk more on that.
He's also going to send some payback information and proceed information from other similar sized cities.
Perfect.
So we can get a kind of a full perspective.
Perfect. So, council, let's be, and mayor, let's be prepared to devote some time to that for in our next meeting. Another closing point, there was a resolution for a grant opportunity for $250,000 for upgrades to windows, and I believe air conditioning at City Hall. But we just want to make sure that we have 3 grants or 3 estimates for that project. I don't believe.
To give us, these are the only, there's 2 companies that came back and they're willing to give us an estimate on each and then one company.
So, okay. So, and that's a DSE grant, and I think the bill dropped off, I'm not sure. But there's no cost to the city on this. It's $250,000 to those upgrades based on those conditions for windows, air conditioning, and possibly some roof repair, right? Mayor?
No,
Nothing.
just HVAC
Okay.
and
Okay. All right, perfect. So with that said, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mylum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a great night, everybody. You'll get the documents.
Yeah, he said he was going to send it over.
Jim.
Are they going to be different from what they were, Dave, a few years ago, you think? Do you think they're going to be different than what they were a few years ago? Because I think we